Hi. This episode was so good. It was boring at times, but I was entertained through the whole thing. I'm a little tired of the 9 versus 7 conversation, but it was still fun to talk about. Okay. This week, we are covering week 3 of The Bachelorette. This video is coming out later than I thought. I was in Chicago last week into this week, and I just did not have a lot of time. Same thing with the last video coming out late. I was in Chicago. I thought it was going to upload before the weekend had even started, but the Airbnb I was staying at had the slowest Wi-Fi in the world, and it took, for real, 4 days for it to upload. So I'm sorry about last week being late. I'm sorry about this week being late. I will get it out earlier next time. All right, let's get into it. Oh, by the way, my name is Alexandra. This is Saturn-ruled 9. So we open this week with the men talking. Dotun mentions that all the attention was on Brayden last week, which I'm so excited to talk about Dotun. Aaron S. mentions that Brayden has some toxic traits, and Sean mentions Brayden too, but I don't remember what he says. Generally, the vibe is that people don't like Brayden. Immediately, Brayden is being pitched as the villain of the episode. So then Charity comes in and she basically fakes them out by saying she can't do this anymore, ... in LA. She mentions that while all the men are going to be traveling on a bus to Oceanside, one special person is going to ride in a helicopter with her to Oceanside, and it's going to be a special one-on-one date. And then with the drum roll, she announces that it is Brayden. Instantly, everybody's pissed. She looks a little smug about it, actually. But yeah, everybody's super annoyed with it. Brayden is obviously super excited. I'm annoyed. The men are annoyed. Whatever. Charity and Brayden take a classic red car. I don't know what the deal with the classic red cars is this season. But they take a classic red car and they ride it to the helicopter where most of the date is going to be happening, I guess. I got some feedback on my last video that Brayden is triple positive because at the beginning of the first episode, I said that he could be triple positive. And I want to just clear that up. I 100% think that he's a 7, 3, 9, maybe 7, 9, 3, but whatever. He is of that trifix, and I will get into the reasons why, but I'm absolutely positive that he has a 3 fix. Anyway, in the car, Brayden is just talking about himself, and while he was doing this, I noticed that I don't think I've heard him ask Charity a question so far. I didn't pick up on any question that he's asked her so far. So maybe he just talks about himself the whole time. I don't know. Anyway, Charity tells the camera that Brayden, considering leaving last week, really freaked her out. And so she's using this time to decide if he is somebody that has the capacity to commit to her, that has the capacity to give her a steadfastness, a perseverance, a longevity. But as we find out later, she's also using this time to get him to reattach to her. She probably thinks that she did something wrong that is getting him to move away. And so she's taking this opportunity to basically perform better for him. That's my take. She also expresses to the camera that she doesn't know if he would be willing to fight for her, which is very big. This is also the attachment language for, will it be entirely up to me to get this relationship to work, or will he also prioritize our relationship? She expresses that she likes him a lot and that this is scary for her. And this is one of those moments where I see a younger version of myself in her, and I do not like it. The tendency to easily overlook red flags comes from a 9-ish place of, it'll be fine, I can handle it. I guess 6 and 3 have their own versions of this, but those 3 types, 9, 6, and 3 coming together can really create a hyper movable object that develops an ego based around moving to fit the object they're attached to in the name of making things work. Anyway, now Charity and Brayden are on the helicopter, and Brayden sees the men getting on the bus, and he laughs, and he calls it cruel that they can see him on the helicopter, especially when they have to be on a hot bus for hours. And he says, I love it. I'm turning into an evil person. 7 just firing off their thoughts with no quality control will just never stop surprising me. On the helicopter, he's super excitable and he's super enthusiastic, which I'm sure Charity loves, from both a this is fun place as well as probably a relieved place. She's probably also thinking, okay, good, he's enjoying himself, as a way for her to collect security for herself that this is something that will progress. Then they land in the middle of a baseball field, and Charity says, this is a quote, she says, "I'm trying to make him feel at ease," which is a strategy on page 1 of the 9 playbook on how to keep your attachment. Like, is very loud. She tells the camera that this is his hometown and that he loves baseball, and him. There's a lot of energy around using his location to make this date comfortable for the two of them, instead of, I don't know, exposing him to something she likes and weighing her decision based off of that. I think something she even says is that she wants to reset the chemistry that they have. Like, she wants the ripples smoothed out. Charity also tells the camera that she wants someone she can have a good time with, and she describes her connection with Brayden as being stupid and fun and playful. I mean, which makes sense, and this is all over a montage of them doing like backflips and playing catch and like generally having a good time. What I'm seeing is that he's happy as long as he's enjoying himself. I don't actually see him enjoying her very much. He's enjoying himself, and she's just along for the ride. Then if you focus on Charity's motives, she is absolutely focused on creating an experience that he will enjoy and hopefully connect to her. I also know that this is part of the framing of the show itself, but that's also pretty standard attachment. Attachment will use the location of the other person in order to craft something with the hope of reciprocity. So an example of this is she is giving him this great experience and hoping that that will reflect on her. Anyway, then we move to Charity and Brayden sitting on the field. They're drinking champagne. They're kissing a lot, which I hate. To me, he has such like negative sexual energy. Like, I understand that she's attracted to him and that he has like an okay face and everything, but he's just so boyish and young and like a little kid, like a big kid who like is still a toddler. I don't know. It's just a real turnoff for me. God bless her, I guess. Also, that's not, the boyish thing is not a 7 thing in particular. I think it's just a Brayden thing. It just really repulses me. Anyway, then there's a quick cut to show us that the men have, on this like gross sweaty bus, have finally arrived at their hotel. So that's good for them. Back to Brayden and Charity. There's this funny part in the show where Brayden tells her that he wants to know what she likes. I think his exact quote is, "I want to know what you like. I want to know what you're into." And then doesn't fucking ask her. Instead of asking her and taking the opportunity, especially after expressing that exact intention, he goes and says, "And I hope I'm one of the things you like." And basically baits her for reassurance, which she, of course, readily gives him. But that part blew my mind a little bit. Like, he's only interested in her for the things that pertain to him. He does tell her that he's crushing on her, but it's interesting to notice that the energy is very one-directional. Like, her as an independent, autonomous object, I don't think he has much interest in. Anyway, he moves on to like give her some affirmation, but then he also says that when he doesn't see her, it's harder for him. He says that he feels really good when he's around her, but then on the days where he's not around her, he questions if he can keep doing this. The quote is, "Can I keep doing this?" And he says this to Charity. Pretty immediately, you see her face fall because, of course, she wants security, she wants certainty, she wants a harmony that's not going to have any ruptures in it. So this is different from a 6-ish need for security. 9 just needs something that's not going to create too many ripples, at least the fixated version of 9. So him having doubts is probably activating to her from her 6 fix, but I would say it's more activating to her to hear that he has any kind of issue at all, that their connection together has any kind of disruption at all. In response to seeing her face fall, he immediately speaks to his own attitude and tells her that he wonders if this attitude that he has is going to hurt her, and her face immediately softens. This is what I thought was 3-ish about him. Like, he was able to track what he looked like to her, and the minute he sensed that he was falling out of her positive gaze, he redirected to say something considerate, and her face softened immediately. He was tracking that. To me, this pointed to his ability to track how she is seeing him and then adjust himself in order to keep that image of him in her mind ideal. In response to this, Charity tells him that she's a fighter that fights for what she cares about and what she wants, but that to have a connection with somebody that doesn't think she's worth fighting for is scary, which to me points to the hallmark 9 fear of separation. Separation, by the way, the fear of separation that 9 has is not an object permanence thing. Like, 9s are not needing to be in the exact vicinity of whoever they're connected to. 9 separation means that the connection itself, in the social case, that the connection itself is not going to break. What she is fearing with Brayden, because Brayden is basically talking about more of an object permanence thing, that he's harmonized with her when they're together, but when they're separate, he's not feeling connected to her. And that's what she's picking up on. That's what's activating her fear of separation. Anyway, then we cut to the hotel. The men are complaining more about Brayden. Some of them say that they want more positive energy from him, which is very funny coming from a bunch of 9s. Then the group date card comes, and I believe it's Joey that announces everyone that's going to be on the group date. For those that don't watch, when the group date card comes, it's going to be a card that has a list of everybody's names except for one person. And the way the show works is that whoever is not on that group date gets the one-on-one date, which is a lot more time, a lot more quality time. It's way more coveted than being on a group date where you obviously have to be in a group. Warwick, I think is how you pronounce it. That's how he pronounced it. Warwick is the name that is not on the group date, which means he is the one that gets the one-on-one, and pretty immediately the other men are surprised by this. There's some commentary to the camera that basically just emphasizes how quiet Warwick is and how this is confusing. All right, we are back to the one-on-one with Brayden. It is the night portion of the date. Charity immediately expresses to the camera that she's not sure if she is something that he wants. My God. And basically how she needs to use this time to figure that out because she doesn't want to be in a relationship where she doesn't feel wanted. That I'm ad-libbing that part, but I feel like it's true. Then they immediately start talking about it. She brings up that him considering leaving made her nervous. And he's basically like, well, I didn't. It's just scary that you're dating other people because I've been cheated on in the past and this is like reactivating old traumas. Which honestly fair. If you've been cheated on, then watching your partner express interest in other people is going to be scary. That makes perfect sense. A funny 7ism here is that he tells the camera that he doesn't like bringing up negative topics because they drain him, which is like, of course. He literally calls himself a fun party guy and says that it's kind of depressing to bring up things he's had to deal with in the past. 793, 739, whatever the combo is, those 3 types have a difficult time metabolizing negativity. And then the double positivity of 7 and 9 really has this upward push. It needs the vibe to be high and right. And then 3, as an assertive type, just wants to keep things moving. So the vibe just needs to be right. Keep that shit moving. For this reason, it tends to be a pretty emotionally avoidant tri-type. Not the best at metabolizing negativity. Anyway, in response to all of this, Charity asks him if he can handle all this, and he says he's going to try. He says he's going to try and do the best he can and swallow this and try his darndest. And he says like this really rapid fire reassurance. He says he's going to try and do the best he can and swallow this and try his darndest because he likes her and da-da-da-da-da. And it was this rapid fire head thing of reassurance that was just so distracting because it was so fast. Like his body is calm, but his head pace, his like mental agility is really, really quick. His bottom line is that he's willing to try for her, which to me is not flattering. She clearly wants to hear that he has the ability to endure negative emotion because he thinks that she's worth it. But he pitches the word try, and she settles for the word try. She tells the camera that he didn't give her a perfect answer, but that he gave her an honest answer, his real answer, and that's what she wants. That struck me. I understand why she would take that at face value. I understand her logic in accepting that, but to me, it still comes off as positive reframing because he's giving you his honest location, and it is not what you're wanting. So at some point, you have to accept that things are what they are, and they are not compatible. Then he gives her a baseball that says you were worth trying for, which Jesus is just really setting the expectation that all she can expect from him is his attempt. Maybe that's cool for other people, but it's just not good enough for her. And to the surprise of no one, about a 9 that likes someone, she closes her eyes to all the red flags and all the missed messages they already have and gives him the rose. Now we head over to the group date, which is a Barbie-themed singing competition. Where they're all going to dress up as different versions of Ken. There's like a disco Ken and a mermaid Ken and an astronaut Ken. And they're all going to write lyrics to the tune of Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Why didn't they do the Barbie song? And Charity will pick a winner who will get some extra time with her. Yay. We pretty much immediately cut to Sean, who has not gotten much airtime yet, to the point where I haven't really been able to give him a type. I think I just assumed he was a 9. But anyway, he says that this date is perfect for him. Let me find my note. Yeah, Sean says that this date is the perfect date for him because he looks like a Ken doll. This is the quote. Like Ryan Gosling is Ken, and you couldn't cast a better Ken unless you were casting me. Underneath this chiseled jawline and great hair, there is a lot of heart and a lot of depth. So I'm already fighting the bias to not type him as a 3, but more needs to be seen. So let's just see more of him. Okay, it is competition time. Dotun goes first, and I think it was really fun. He was full of personality. He invites her onto the stage, which he loves. He's in this ridiculous astronaut suit and this like funny, what is it called? Blonde wig that is constantly in his face. He's also like 11 feet tall. So there was like a owning of the ridiculousness that I think he did really well, especially because he probably knows his voice is atrocious. James is some other Ken, and he's the only one with pitch. This is not important to the analysis of the show, but as a singer, I thought it was worth noting. Good for James. Caleb B., the wrestler who's dressed as a cowboy, he talks to the camera about having a trick up his sleeve, and then when it's his time to show, he can basically just belt. His voice is not, like, excellent, but he clearly he put some, like, styling into it, which made the crowd go crazy. Charity seemed to like it. I love Caleb. He's 100% not going to last on the show, but I think he's fun. All right, the main character of the group date is Sean, and now it's his turn. His version of Ken is double denim Ken. He has these like wide denim jeans on and this kind of denim jacket, okay? He says that he wants to show Charity that there's more than just a pretty face here. His voice is horrendous, but he really plays to the crowd. He's really hammy. He's got a lot of star power. He takes his shirt off in order to peacock a little bit, and then he pulls Charity on stage and kisses her, like makes out with her. And then, because Charity loves an assertive direction, she loves a guy that can really go after her. She fucking loves it. Now it's the end of the competition, and Charity picks Sean for the extra time, which makes everybody want to die. As a side note, Caleb B expresses sadness for losing again because he like really gave it his all. And I think I already typed him as a self-pres type, but I think that's an interesting example of self-preservation dominant version of peacocking. Like, he was also sad about not getting MVP and thought that he would really stand out to Charity for these like physical feats of display and strength, as opposed to something more personal. Aaron S. gives this super cool and not cringy at all monologue where he tells the camera, let me find the quote, "If you want a pretty boy, go for Sean, but look at me, I'm a fucking man. I know how to camp and fish and hunt and water ski and wakeboard." Which was, first of all, hilarious because he's in this like sparkly sheer crop top, but also really convinced me that he should win because to me, peak manhood has always been someone that knows how to wakeboard. Sean and Charity get their time together and they basically just make out. It's really not pleasant to look at. And then we cut to the night portion of the group date. It starts off with all the men sitting together talking, and then clearly the show is villainizing Sean at this point because Sean comes in while all the men are talking, singing the lyrics to the song he wrote that won him the competition. So it's like just already an annoying flex, and it was in this moment that I decided for sure that he's a 3. I think he's a 3 with a 7 fix. He's got some upward really high self-regard. But what convinced me of 3 is that Sean has basically been a neutral, non-existent character this whole time, and then he gets like 2 seconds of attention and he's high on his own supply. I also kind of think he could be a similar typing as Mike the Situation from the Jersey Shore. Don't ask me why I know that, but they do vibe similarly to me. One is just like a Jersey Shore meathead, and one for sure has a rich dad. Anyway, Aaron calls him a dumbass, which is funny and apt. Sean continues to be braggy, and Aaron asks him if he's an only child, which is also funny. There's a certain emphasis that Aaron places on being humble, which was my first sign into 6. I think I originally typed him as a 6, just based on the photos. But then when I saw him live, I thought 9. But something about his behavior in this episode in particular has me pointing to 6. So we'll keep a pulse on that, because I can't fully tell, but I'm starting to lean 6. Anyway, Charity comes in, and Sean immediately pisses everybody off by grabbing her, pulling her for more time. The men get mad at this because they think it's disrespectful since he's already had time and they have not had time with her. That's not really that important to talk about, but again, I do think it's funny that it's a bunch of 9s angry at Sean for not being considerate. It's another display of the 9 ego that is built on consideration, basically through self-neglect, getting mad at somebody that can self-prioritize. Anyway, John gets some one-on-one time. It's very easy and cute, and they kiss. And we move to a montage of her getting time with the other men, and she's generally having a good time. Then, and this is my favorite part of the episode, Dotun gets some one-on-one time with her. We have not heard from Dotun very much. Charity decides to have some extra alone time with him and takes him to her room. Okay. I am never moved by these types of shows. I prefer to watch them for the analysis because I think everybody's full of shit and analysis is more interesting. But the interaction here between Charity and Dotun was genuinely moving to me. I think I'm very close to Charity's typing. I think we're both social self-pres 9-wing 1s with 6 and 3. I think the wing on her 6 and her 3 are different than mine, but still, we're very similar. And his quality of attention would have absolutely melted my heart into a puddle. First of all, his energy is very natural and comfortable, which just sets a good tone for Charity as a 9. But the compliments he was able to pay her really showed that he's been observing her and been attuned to her, which Charity clearly loves. She clearly feels a deficit of that in her own life. He tells her that he has never been able to learn from his past relationships, but then in observing her and in watching her interact in his time on the show, he feels that she's someone that he can learn from. He even trips over his words a little bit, but he says that he's going to go on and on and on about her forever. He calls her competent, and she starts tearing up. She's clearly very moved by this. I would be moved so fast. I would stop the whole show. He says that it's crazy to watch her become what he sees as his ideal woman, and this is a quote part. He says, "And that's a huge deal, Charity." Stop the show. The show is over. Everybody lost. This is your husband in front of you now, right now. It's so interesting, the shadow for attention that comes with 9. The 9 thing is to self-efface. It's to keep the attention off of themselves as a way to ensure acceptance. And what this ends up doing is it creates a backlog of basically a need for attention. And this creates this big oceanic need to be noticed and admired and acknowledged. And Charity clearly has this. She clearly wants to be seen and admired and noticed and experienced and felt. And Dotun really delivers this need to her perfectly. She tells him that she doesn't get told this kind of stuff very often and that it's very moving to her. And then we cut to the camera and Charity tells the camera that no one has ever told her anything like this ever, and she emphasizes the word ever. To me, Dotun is clearly fulfilling her need to be claimed and seen and admired, which I do think Brayden can do. I don't like the way he does it. I don't think in a very satisfying way, but whatever, she feels it from him, and I guess that's all that matters. But Dotun is also fulfilling her need for safety and security, which we know Brayden can absolutely not give her. She's been anxious about her connection with Brayden since last week. And then when we compare this energy to Aaron B, who I think also can provide her safety, Dotun just has more energy. He has more aliveness to him. He can move the energies and take that pressure off of Charity. It's very clear that in a relationship with Aaron B, Charity would be the active one. And while 9s like being active every now and then, we mostly want to chill. Anyway, Charity comes back to the group and she gives Dotun the rose because who the fuck else was going to get the rose? So yay, Dotun has a rose because he's her husband already and she just doesn't know it yet. Now we go back to the hotel and the guys are basically just talking shit about Warwick. Warwick is super mega quiet, I guess, and they're all just exchanging stories about how quiet he is. Joey says that when he was reading the date card, he didn't know who got the one-on-one because he basically forgot Warwick existed. And then Aaron S. says something what does he do? He tells James to describe Warwick, and all James can say is he's a nice guy, which is kind of mean, but also it's very obvious that they're describing a 9 here. A guy barely exists. That's a 9. This was another 6-ism towards Aaron S. He says something like, what if Warwick is hiding his colors until it's time to stop chopping heads? Which is yeah, I guess, but also probably not. To me, this was just a manifestation, an anxious manifestation of the unseen, which cemented 6 a little further for Aaron to me. Okay, now we are moving to the one-on-one with Warwick. We see Charity dressed in this big fluffy, puffy thing, and she just looks very fluffy and soft. And she tells the camera that she's excited because despite not having had very many conversations with Warwick, she's intrigued by him and she's physically attracted to him. I don't understand her attraction map, but that's not for me to understand. The one thing I can comment on is that Warwick is a very far cry away from the people she has expressed attraction to. So far, she likes like this big, obnoxious type, or people with assertive energy, people that can really locate themselves easily and put her in a more passive feminine role. And Warwick clearly does not do that, or he hasn't up to this point. Anyway, their date is at a theme park that is reserved for just the two of them. She emphasizes roller coasters and riding rides and getting to play games. And she says that she can't wait to see this side of Warwick because it's going to be fun and romantic and playful because he's someone who likes to have fun. This is a quote pulled from the show. And this is all over a montage of them like playing and having fun and riding rides and stuff. And also just an amazing example of projection. Like, what has she seen from Warwick that makes her think he's going to be externally based like this? This is another reason why nines are so popular in reality TV shows. They can give you nothing, and you can extract a lot from that. Nothing real, right? Nothing based in reality or based on even observation. You can kind of just see what you want. Anyway, once they're done riding rides, they get some quality time, and the energy falls immediately. She's baiting him with questions, and he's answering very passively, giving her very minimal eye contact. There's like barely any words. The conversation basically starts, or not a conversation. She asks a question, and he just drops the ball. She tells the camera, at some point they are trying to figure out what ice cream they like, and she scoops her own ice cream, and she expresses to the camera that she's disappointed in having to scoop her own ice cream because she just wants a gentleman who will step up. This is all just highlighting how passive he is. He's like generally staying inside of himself and only releasing the minimum level of engagement necessary to carry him through this date. Yeah, there's just a lot of footage of awkward silences, and silence is fine. You know, in a relationship, like past the attraction phase, I actually think silence is great. To me, it is a new level of intimacy when you can just be quiet with someone. This is like that Pulp Fiction quote. But not at this stage. You're not curious at all. There's nothing for you to learn here or try to extract. This is not the time to be quiet when you've known someone for 20 whole minutes. This dynamic also is kind of funny to me because, as we've covered, there are a lot of nines that just love to be adored, that love to be led, that love to have a stronger, more assertive energy to respond to. And in this dynamic, who's it going to be? The battle of two nines. Who's going to lead the adoration? Who's going to pull who out? It's just clearly obvious that between the two of them, there's no chemistry, there's not even conversation, there's certainly no intimacy. It's very awkward. We cut to Warwick telling the camera that his date with Charity is going great, but that amusement parks make him sleepy. At some point, Charity tries to engage him in conversation, asks him what his best attribute is. He cannot locate a best attribute about himself. She says that she prides herself on communication, and that basically wakes him up, and he's like, oh yeah, one of my weaknesses actually is communication. To me, watching this was a good display of a nine who really struggles with his line to three. A lot of people think that the 9 line to 3 is leaping into action and like productivity mode and, you know, kind of displaying a narcissism. But in my experience, it's more like a healthy vanity. It's an ability to showcase who you are. Warwick's entire experience is within himself, and he just expects, who knows what he expects? We don't fucking know because he doesn't show anything about himself. Especially when you compare this to Dotun. Dotun has a really easy time expressing who he is, even though his energy is very clearly just 9. So yeah, the rest of the date is really not worth covering because nothing happens in it. But I actually do think it's worth watching because it is a really clear display on just a really narcotized 9. To no one's surprise, she sends him home, says she cannot give him the rose, to which he's like, okay, yeah. And he gets right into the car. And in the car, the producers ask him what he thinks happened, and he's like yawning and falling asleep. He was clearly not activated at all by Charity, and that's the thing about 9s. When they don't care, they give you nothing. They can also give you nothing if they're like scared or shy or something, just as like a cautionary behavior. But in this case, it's very clear he wasn't activated by Charity at all, so he just did the bare minimum to get him through the day. This made me want to rank the 9s on the show because their ability to externalize themselves. First of all, there's like 25 9s, but they all kind of fall on different levels regarding their ability to externalize themselves. So to me at the top is Charity. I'm biased because she's a social 9, and I think social 9s have an easier time showing who they are. Also, she's the lead, whatever. Then maybe Joey. Joey has a pretty easy time being sparkly. I think Dotun is certainly up there. We'll put him next. I would say Adrian and Xavier and maybe James are in the middle somewhere. Yeah, they're there, but they don't really try very much. I would say Aaron B is pretty internal as well. He's there, but you can tell he like lives inside of his body. And then I would do like 3 empty spaces and then Warwick right at the bottom. There you go. The ranking of the 9s. All right, back to the hotel. Brayden is talking about how he doesn't know if he can do this. Basically, he's just like expressing his concerns again, and the men are frustrated by this. I think at some point Aaron B tells the camera that he's going to tell Charity about Brayden's concerns, hesitancies, which is a dumb idea. Then we move into the cocktail party, which is the party where they all mingle before the rose ceremony where we decide who's going home. Or Charity decides, not me. I would make very different choices. Anyway, Charity is with the guys, and she tells them that she sent Warwick home, basically because he was not ready for an engagement at the end of this. And this, of course, activates the men, activates Aaron, activates Brayden, whose whole theme on the show is that he's not sure if he can get engaged. Then they cheers, and then we start mingling. Joey gets some alone time with her. He takes the opportunity to share some handwritten letters that his grandpa wrote, which is fine. He continues to be a big sparkly-eyed 9 boy that looks like a Disney prince. Yeah, I kind of wonder if he's a water sign. His eyes are just so big and wet. Xavier has some alone time with her, and he shares a scarf that he knitted. I did actually look back in the episode to see if that was the same scarf he was working on in the bus, and it was. Yeah, he continues to be smooth and creamy. He says that he's never knit anything for anyone before, so that's some more flattery for Charity. And that while he was knitting it, he was thinking about the type of person he could be for her and how to be best for her or something like that, which I think she takes as like good and sweet, but I thought it was an interesting contrast to some of the other men that are being more assertive. Xavier was basically asking her how he can externalize himself for her instead of just externalizing himself. So I do like them together, but I don't know if he's going to last based on his lack of assertiveness. All right, and now we get to the most annoying part of the episode because it is centered around Brayden more. Brayden and Charity get some one-on-one time. It starts off in pretty good spirits. He asks about the baseball, which is another question that only has to do with him. Like, he never even asks, how are you? He just immediately starts talking about himself or asking about himself. Okay, this struck me as a little weird. He says that it was nice to be in San Diego with her, and that while he was there, he was just thinking about how he could, like, introduce her to his friends and family, something like that. And he says, I'm already planning ahead, which is probably confusing as fuck to her. Like, he's not sure if he can go through with the engagement at the end of this, but he's, like, expressing a lot of enthusiasm and basically making plans. Obviously, I understand the actual grounded logic in expressing enthusiasm and, like, forward momentum without the promise of an engagement after, like, 8 weeks or however long this is. But within the context of the show, I think it does send mixed messages. 7s as frustration types and as head types, they can be more engaged to the mental object, the abstraction, the symbol, than with reality itself, than with tangible reality itself. It can just be more fun to kind of play in the mental center where things can be engaging and stimulating and anticipatory than to be within the limitations of reality in the here and now. We cut to him telling the camera that he had a bomb time kissing her, which makes me want to fling myself into the sun. And he does a happy dance, which just emits more catatonically negative amounts of sexual energy for me. But if it works for other people, if it works for you, if you're watching this and you're into that, then God bless. There's someone for everyone. But for me, it makes me want to hide at the core of the earth and never come out again. I do actually think he likes her, but I think he likes her as a companion to him enjoying himself, as opposed to knowing her enough to like her. What is he connecting to? He doesn't ask her any questions. He just knows how well she fits into his flow. Yeah, I think she's just mostly his, like, fun object. All right, then we cut to Aaron B talking to Aaron S, basically complaining about Brayden, and I don't know, he says that he's not here for the right reasons, just all of the normal stuff. And then we cut to Aaron B getting alone time with Charity, and he jumps right into it. He tells her that he's grown protective of her feelings, which she loves. and that he needs to tell her about Brayden. He says Brayden's not ready for an engagement, and he's been very vocal around the house about not wanting to be here and not wanting to be with someone who's dated 20 of her friends, his friends. Charity's face is immediately pissed. And then, this is kind of slimy, Aaron tells her that he's here for her and doesn't want to see her get her heart broken, which of course is nice, but to say that right after throwing someone else under the bus just seems a little manipulative to me. I'm sure Aaron B is fine, but that did feel a little slimy to me, so I wouldn't be shocked if Aaron B sullied his own image to Charity by doing this. Anyway, Charity's pissed. She expresses to the camera that she's given Brayden a ton of reassurance and a ton of validation, and that the hard pill to swallow is that no matter how much she does that, it might not be enough to get Brayden to get on board. Which is the lesson every attachment type, whether you are a 9, a 6, or 3, this is the lesson every attachment type, even people with attachment fixes, needs to learn. Giving your object, the person you are attached to, what you think they will want needs to happen autonomously. It needs to happen freely and generously, not with the hope and or unspoken condition that it will be reciprocated to you. What is happening between Charity and Brayden is she took him on that one-on-one. She takes him to the baseball stadium in his hometown. She does all of these Brayden things in order to set the conditions for him to be able to freely reciprocate. She's not necessarily doing this out of generosity. I know this might be a hot take, but she's not really doing it out of the generosity of her own heart. She's doing this in exchange for his reciprocity. A lot of people confuse that for 2. 2 has a whole different strategy going on. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. Okay, we cut back to the men. Aaron B immediately goes up to Brayden and tells him that he talked to Charity about her, which I thought was kind of cool. Brayden explains himself and says that the people that really expect to be engaged at the end of this are not really contemplating what an engagement really means. Basically, the getting engaged after like 2 or 3 months, I don't actually know how long the show lasts, and with 20 other men intermingled is unrealistic and not well considered, which is a very annoying thing to have to agree with. Brayden also calls out Aaron's motive for talking to Charity as also being for self-protection, which is another slam dunk. Then he tells the camera that he was just being transparent and putting stuff out there, and that he didn't expect it to be used against him. I think that's probably 7, just lack of quality control or like attunement to other people. Like a 6 wouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? But there is like a positive self-regard that 7 has, and like a real commitment to like hopefulness, that they just don't consider the bad things that could happen or the ways that people could use information against them. He also points out that the information Aaron B told Charity is nothing he hasn't told Charity himself already. He calls Aaron insecure. This is a quote. He says to the camera, I'm pretty sure. But he says, fuck you, dude. Your ego got stressed because you don't have one of these on your chest, and so you want to throw me under the bus. It's honestly super fucking annoying to have to agree with him because I find his personality repulsive, but he's totally right. Aaron B felt insecure. He felt like somebody was getting ahead. He didn't like the idea that someone was getting ahead and found the first micro thing he could use as a weapon to take him down with. I guess it's possible that Aaron didn't think Charity already knew how Brayden was speaking and thought she needed to know. But his motive was like definitely to undercut Brayden in Charity's eyes. Anyway, Brayden's super frustrated. He's venting to the camera. He's venting to the other guys. And it's just very annoying to have to say that Charity is wrong. She's in the wrong right now. She was expecting her reassurance, her validation, the comfort that she was able to bring him to change his mind about how he feels, and then to find out that he's still in the exact same spot he communicated to her is making her feel lied to, when really she was lying to herself in order to stay hopeful. She tells the camera, why are you here? You knew what you signed up for, which is fair. He did know what he signed up for. I'm guessing Brayden joined the show for a good time, for like an adventure. You know, he's a 7, he's a fucking DJ. Not expecting to actually like her, and now he actually kind of does like her and is just struggling with the reality of what was supposed to just be fun. Okay, Charity pulls Brayden to go talk to him, and she's super pissed, which I really appreciate seeing. I like seeing 9s get angry. I think it's enlivening and fun. And we cut back to the men, and the men are pissed at Aaron. Xavier tells Aaron that telling Charity was basically shitty because now there are other men that are going to be affected because more of Charity's time is being given to Brayden instead of developing other connections. Aaron B defends his point. He says that he just can't have someone walking around with bad intentions, which is a weird justification, but fine. I believe we cut to Tanner talking to James, and he says something like Brayden is just going to talk his way out of this because that's what he does, which I thought was interesting because I don't know if that's what's been happening. I don't know that he's been talking his way out of this. I think James, Tanner, oh my God, some very basic name, one of them are speaking to a kind of smooth charm that Brayden has. However, the content of what he's saying is far from what Charity wants to hear. It's far from like smooth talking. There is kind of a smooth, charming delivery, but the content itself has her disrupted, like has her dysregulated. So I think what Connor, or Tanner, one of them is picking up on is a kind of upbeat charm that Brayden has as a vehicle to deliver bad news in a way that she still receives well. Anyway, now we're back to Brayden. Brayden is talking to Charity. He tells her he really likes her. He basically repeats all the same things he's already said to her, really standing firm in like his location. And he points out that he doesn't think the other men understand the gravity of what it means to get engaged in this environment. He tells her that she told him that honesty is one of her biggest values, and that he's not going to sit here and lie to her by saying that he can do an engagement when he doesn't know that he can. I mean, what can you say to that? You know, we cut to Charity and we see her deflating because what can you say to that? He's giving you his honest location. He's making perfect sense. What can you say? She does say that she doesn't like to hear that he's complaining about her dating other people and points out that he knew that that was the setup of the show before coming onto the show. To which he says, yes, I did know that that was the setup of the show, but that doesn't mean it's easy. I am so frustrated in this part. I want to hate Brayden more than anything else, so it makes me so angry that I have to actually side with him because what's happening here is he is not playing the attachment game. Everybody came in understanding the setup of the show, and he is the only one that's like, yeah, that's the setup of the show, but it makes no fucking sense. Like, there's no reason my heart wouldn't be affected by watching you date other people in front of me and then expecting to cultivate the proper amount of intimacy in order to propose to you at the end of this. There's also, okay, this is my 6 fix acting up. There is also a possibility that he is just being super logical as a way to maintain distance because he doesn't actually want to get engaged. But that is my own 6 fix conspiracy. Let's see how it plays out. Yeah, in my notes, he says, I think that my hesitancies are more real than what anyone else is expressing. And that one, like, that one made me so angry because it's true. It's true. His hesitations are more real than what anybody else is expressing. The idea of getting engaged in 8 weeks after dating a million other people in front of you, after getting, I think by the end of these shows, they spend like less than 10 hours together total. Like, of course he makes sense. But yeah, hating a person's personality and having to agree with their points gives me a stomachache. Okay, she seems to collect herself a little bit. She tells him that she's questioning what this rose symbolizes to him. She says she relates to what he's experiencing and that she's not asking for any more than what he can give her, which gives him the perfect platform to say he knows he can give her a connection, but that's all that he knows he can give her. She is deflated. She says okay, and she leaves. Clearly didn't get the answers she wanted, didn't get the tone she wanted, but she got his honesty, and that is apparently a value of hers, so she's kind of pissed but accepting. Yeah, again, it's interesting that Brayden is honestly making the most sense, but because he is going against the grain of the entire show, he's being portrayed as the villain. He's annoying for sure, but I don't actually think that this is the reason he needed to be villainized. I think his annoying personality will reveal itself to be more annoying and different incompatibilities will show up and ultimately get him kicked off the show, but I don't actually think this is the reason. All right, Jesse comes in, announces that it's time for the rose ceremony. Let's see, there are people that are pissed off at Aaron. It's interesting that no one is actually mad at Brayden. They're annoyed by his personality, of course, but annoying isn't necessarily harmful. And Aaron's actions were actually harmful. There were a few of the men that didn't get any time with Charity at all, and that basically cemented them going home. Rose ceremony time. There's all this drama being built up that Charity could take away Brayden's rose. She talks to Jesse and basically expresses that, yes, she can take away his rose. But again, as far as what she should do, who knows? On one hand, she is taking a gamble with Brayden, especially seeing that she knows that he cannot guarantee her anything. But on the other hand, he's laying all his cards out there plainly. She's not going to get any actual surprises from her the way she's probably going to get them from the other men who are playing ball and might find out later that they can't play ball. I think she's going to dump him later for a different reason, so who cares? She hands out the roses. She keeps Sean. Why does she keep Sean? She keeps Tanner, which is even more confusing for me because who's Tanner? And then she leaves. And there's all of this suspense. Is Charity going to come back and take away Brayden's rose, or is this all the roses being handed out and Brayden gets to stay? But then Jessie comes back in and makes it clear that she has handed out all of her roses, which means that Brayden is staying. Going home are James, who was that middle nine that said and did nothing, Adrian, who is another kind of middle nine that said and did nothing, and Aaron S., who is that guy who talked about being a man because he's a wakeboarder, and I believe a 6. The tension is over. She has kept Brayden. I don't know. At least she'll be super sure that she's ready to send him home when she does. She does say something about not wanting to be impulsive. I can't remember the exact word she uses, but I know that I resonated with it. I think a lot of 9s can leave relationships once they have exhausted all attempts to salvage the relationship, and I think that's probably what's going to happen with her. She's going to realize that all of these attempts are in vain and dump him. I ultimately think it's going to be his immaturity that gets him sent home, because how could it not be? Anyway, teaser looks juicy. Dotun gets a one-on-one, which is amazing, and Xavier gets a one-on-one, which I'm sure will be very cute. Yeah. All right, so that concludes this episode. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, whatever you can think of. I am excited for the next episode. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.